Hello guys, we have another episode today of Strip by Sia, your podcast for strippers and sex workers. We have the lovely Miss Jessica Lyn in the studio today, aka her studio today, because we're recording on site. She's the lovely owner of AVA Fitness Studios here in New Westminster. And yeah, I'm going to let you take it away. Hello.
Hi guys.
Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me on.
Yay. So excited to have you. I've been really excited to do this episode, and I've been really kind of like picky choosy about who I wanted to come on for this specific topic. So today guys, we're going to be talking about sexual abuse, so it might be a trigger. Just want to give that warning out there. If you are triggered by sexual abuse or sexual assault or anything like that, you might want to skip this episode, so I just want to throw that out there. But we're going to touch on that subject later today. Really going to dive deep into that. But before we get into all that fun, crazy stuff, well, not crazy, it is really crazy. We're emotional. Oh God. We're going to talk about you. So who are you?
So I am just a Canadian girl. I was born in Toronto. I grew up there, and when I was 19, I decided to leave the country, and I moved to Paris, where I lived for 2 years. And then from there, my ex, his job moved us to London, England. So we actually moved there, and I lived there for 7 years. So when I was 27 or 28, I moved back to Canada, and I came to Vancouver because whilst I was away, my mom and my brother had moved out here to Vancouver from Toronto. And when I made the decision to come back to Canada, I always have loved Vancouver, and I always knew that I wanted to live here. So I did.
Wow.
And then when I came here, I really didn't know what I wanted to do with my life, you know. Still like at 27, I was like, I don't know what I want to do. I had some great jobs over the years, but you know, at that point I had been already teaching pole dancing in England, and I decided that that's what I wanted to do, and that's why I opened up this studio.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing. I did not know that you lived in Europe. Oh my gosh, I did not know all this stuff. Okay, so backtrack. So First of all, Paris.
Yes.
Tell me about your experience in Paris.
So Paris was fun. I mean, I was 19 when I left. That really was just me wanting to get away from everything that had been going through in Toronto. And if we like reverse, you know, rewind.
Back up.
Yeah, let's rewind the tape like 2 years prior to that. That's actually when I had started. No, I was 18.
Oh, wow.
I was 18,
okay.
And I had been working in Toronto. The reason that I kind of got into it was because the guy I was dating at the time, I think I started dating him at 16. By 18, he had introduced me to stripping. Like, he brought me to my first strip club.
Oh.
You know, there was a lot of substance abuse intertwined in those couple of years as well on his part, but he really introduced me to a lot of that. When I turned 18, I was in a, you know, obviously I was still in school, but I was like, I want to work, I want to make money. And I had really been intrigued by that whole industry because I had been visiting these clubs, and I'm like, this is really cool. And as a patron, you think it's really glamorous. Yeah. And, you know, and you hear stories. I talked to some of the strippers back then, and this is like I want to say 1999 or 2000. So this is like going way back.
Way back, guys.
and the girls were, you know, they were like, oh, it's great money. And at that time it was, you know, it was really good. The lap dances were a lot cheaper then too. They were like $20, and that was like expensive.
Oh,
yeah.
wow.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that's really cheap.
Yeah, so the girls made a lot of good money. And of course I was like, well, I could do that. You know, this is really cool. And so that's how I got started there. And then I worked in Toronto. It was about a year and a half I was doing that. And then I moved to Paris. So I met a guy. And a different guy. Okay. So I broke up with that guy that introduced me to stripping.
Okay.
He was kind of just bad news.
Yeah.
He was like mentally abusive. I won't go too much into it, but mentally abusive. He did put his hands on me once, and that's when we split up.
Yeah, like never again.
No, I was like, nobody is ever going to touch me like that.
Yeah.
We're done. So that was the time that I was really like, you know what, I just want to leave. I need to go and do something and just believe I didn't have a great relationship with my mom or my dad, really. You know, my mom, like, I was a rebellious teenager. I had attitude. I just like thought I knew everything, like every teenage girl does.
Yes.
Yeah, we all go through that. And I just wanted to travel and get away from Toronto, because to me it was just like a dead end place for me.
Right.
So I left, and anyway, I met this guy. He was originally from France, but had lived in Quebec and then moved to Toronto. And he also at the same time wanted to go traveling. So when we met, I was like, oh, I want to go somewhere. I'm probably going to go to Mexico or something like that, work in the resorts and have fun. And he was going to go to Venezuela because his best friend had just moved there. So he was going to go visit him. And then we really liked each other. So we were like, why don't we just go travel somewhere together?
Oh, wow.
And anyway, so I decided, okay, let's go. Where do we want to go? And he said, well, I'm from Paris. I've always wanted to go back there. I haven't been there since I was a kid. Why don't we go? And I was like, hell yeah, let's do it. So I got myself a 1-year visa where I could work, a working holiday visa. And we had gotten engaged in that time as well. So we were together for like 3 months, 4 months maybe, and we got engaged before we left.
Wow, okay.
And then
at 19.
we went at 19.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
Okay, wow. Okay, lots of things happening here. Holy crap, I can't even imagine being engaged at 19.
Actually, I was 18. I turned 19 after we left. So,
oh my gosh.
So we left.
You're a baby.
I was a baby, but this is how kind of desperate I was to leave at the time.
Yeah.
Like, I was just like, get me out of here.
Like, that's your ticket. That's your way out.
It was my ticket. And
okay.
he was charming. You know, he was like my knight in shining armor. He just came into my life and, you know, swept me up and was like, look, I can take care of you. I'm going to get you out of this lifestyle that you're in, and all the crap that I was going through. And that I was just like, yes, I'm going.
Yes. Was he older?
A little bit.
Okay,
like
but not
5 years. Yeah,
okay.
5 years older. So we left in like the January of 2001. I turned 19. It was funny because I was like, I'm finally of age in Canada, and I'm not even there anymore. But that's another story. Yeah. So we went to Paris, and I didn't know what I wanted to do. I could really not speak any French.
Oh my God.
I knew from what I had learned in school,
yes.
and being in Toronto, we have to take French up until like grade 10.
Yeah.
I really had broken French. So while he was working, I was going to school for French and learning. And then I enrolled myself in hairstyling school there because I didn't know what I wanted to do. I was like, I need to do something. So I went to hairstyling school. I was not dancing at that time because he didn't want me to.
Okay.
And I respected that. And I was like, that's fine, no problem.
And he knew all about that.
He knew.
Past?
Oh, yes. He knew everything. And he was cool with that. And he was just like, I don't really want you to do that here. And it's very different in Paris as well. Like,
oh, okay.
It's very different. Like we had visited a few clubs, and I was like, I don't actually think I want to do this here anyway.
Okay.
I'll get into that later.
Yes.
But, so yeah, I enrolled myself in hairstyling school. So I was doing that full time, and I was working in hair salons part time. And that's basically what I was doing there. And then just over a year and a half later, his job moved to London. Moved him to London.
Okay. So that's how you got yourself to London.
That's how I got myself to London. So I had finished my schooling.
Yeah.
I had just graduated from that, and then he actually went to London first because I had all my exams, so I stayed in Paris for like another 3 weeks. Did that, and then I moved over as well.
Oh my gosh.
Mm-hmm.
It's such a whirlwind. Oh wow.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to wrap my head around everything. There's so many questions. Okay. So then continue. So you got to London. How's your experience there?
So London is great. It's such a different city. The people are really awesome. Like I love London. I miss it a lot. All of my best friends are there.
Oh.
Like they're my friends for life, and yeah, they're just awesome people, and they're real, real people, like no fakeness.
They don't have any filters there.
They don't, and that's what I love.
Yeah.
I love that. Like, if you don't like something, tell me, or whatever.
Yeah, just be straight with me, guys.
Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah. So London was cool. I was working for a little bit. Again, I'm still with my ex. So at this point, we're married. So we had actually gotten married while we were in Paris. Anyway, he's working. I started working for a construction company. I was an office manager.
Okay.
So I did that for a while. And then I got a different job for a fleet company, and I was a fleet manager. So I used to manage company cars. Company cars in England are big, so every company will have one as a benefit. So yeah, it's a big deal there. So I was doing that. This is like maybe 4 years in, 5 years in. No, it was about 4 years in. Me and my ex split.
Okay.
It was amicable. We just kind of decided we wanted different things in life. He wanted to continue traveling forever. I always had it in my head that I wanted to come back to Canada.
Right.
And he really didn't anymore. And so we just thought, you know what? We were so young. I mean, like I was
a baby.
Yeah, I think I had just turned 20 when we got married.
Gosh.
Yeah, so
oh my gosh. Look at my face, guys, if you can see it. I'm like, oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Wow.
Different time. A little bit of a different time, though.
Wow,
right?
child.
Yeah, I was. I definitely was. So we split, and it was fine. And then I had gotten together with a coworker of mine who was a woman. We had an 8.5-year relationship as well. So when I started dating her, and I had split from my ex, that's when I got into dancing again.
Okay.
So kind of like as soon as he was like, I'm out, and I'm like, I'm out, I'm like, okay, I'm going back to dancing. Like, it was like the first thing that I did. And I missed it.
Okay.
Yeah, I really had missed it. And the main thing that I missed was being on the stage. That's my happy place.
Totally.
I can take or leave the VIP dancing.
Yes.
But I was like, put me on stage. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then shortly thereafter, I actually started pole dancing for fitness. Okay, so this is around 2006.
Okay.
Yeah, no, this was 2006. This is when pole dancing started to become a little bit more mainstream, like in the rec, like it was a rec center that I was at.
Oh my gosh.
Yes.
Yeah, I remember that 'cause I remember they like tried to do pole dancing at like one of the local gyms here, and like, pole dancing? What's going on here? Yeah, that was around that time I was like in high school. I'm like, what's happening?
Yeah. So, and it was one of my coworkers at the fleet management company that was like, we should go to this pole dancing class. And I had been dancing already, like on the weekends.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, sure, like this would help my career in dance and stripping, right?
And at the fleet, did they know that you were dancing as well?
Yeah.
They're super cool, super open about it.
Oh yeah, they didn't mind. I mean, I wasn't like advertising it, like come see me at the club, you know.
Yeah.
But it was commonly known, and everybody is cool like that. There's like so many strip clubs in England. Like every town has like 2 or 3.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's like, yeah, it's very common.
So cool.
So, yeah, so I was dancing and then taking classes, after work in the week. And really that's where my love of pole as a sport and an art and, outside of the club really started to grow. So I was just like loving it, all of my friends. I mean, you're in it.
Yes.
You have all your best friends around you.
Yes.
We all have a common goal.
Yes.
We all want to like do really cool stuff with our body.
And we all want to succeed and make these cool shapes and stuff.
That's
too.
it. Yeah. And feel good and feel sexy. And it's very different from being in the clubs,
Yeah, it's a definitely different environment and different kind of mentality, right?
Yeah.
So before pole fitness happened, I guess you were mostly self-taught then, or you're just like, how did that work? How did you learn skills? How did you learn how to dance?
I did not touch the pole.
Okay. It's just there.
It's just there. So, I mean, like nobody really knew anything apart from like a fireman spin or like a chair spin. It was like you use the pole to kind of dance around and then you do lots of floor work.
Okay.
And the thing is, being in the club, the tricks are always appreciated, but the guys sitting around the front of the stage, they want all of your attention on them. Right? So it really is more about kind of going up to each one of them individually and just giving them a show and making them feel good.
Yeah.
So
giving them some attention.
Yeah, giving them attention. And the pole tricks were really just like, nobody at that time was really doing anything. Right. I think a couple girls may have gone upside down, but it was just like an upside down crucifix and then like slide to the floor. And that was it. There was no tricks.
Wow, I would like cringe if I saw that on stage nowadays.
I know.
Oh my God.
It's come so far since then.
Totally.
So I was doing that. So that was about 2006. And then I danced till I moved here, which was 2009.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Very cool.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God.
So in total, about 4.5 to 5 years of stripping from like, my first year and a bit when I was 18 and then restarting that whole
your
part
second
of my
wave.
Life is my second wave. Absolutely.
Oh
a few years later.
Crazy.
Yeah.
How did you kind of phase that out, or when did you decide that you wanted to stop? Or was that because like, hey, I'm going to move back to Canada and now I'm going to just be done with it?
Yes, that's exactly what it was. So when I thought about moving here, I thought, I can't do this forever. I'm getting older. Right at that time, I was like 27, 28 when I moved back here. And so I just thought, I don't want to have to do this forever. I want to actually do something and use my time to do something that's going to go on for a long time.
Yeah, totally.
And that is really the only reason that I stopped, was just, it wasn't like, oh, I'm totally done with this. It's just like, I need to move myself into a career path that's going to take me into my like 60s.
Yeah.
And there's a shelf life. Exactly.
There is.
And I'm like, those were the best years of my life, like physically and,
Yes.
So
definitely.
Yeah. And I was just like, I've done it. I'm good.
Yeah. Cause it's not a sustainable career. It's like, you have your prime years to do it.
Yes.
As you said, when you're optimal, like in shape,
yes.
your body, everything, you're young, your skin's good and all that stuff. There is an expiration date for this kind of career path, right? So it's smart that you were already thinking ahead and being really proactive about like, okay, what's my next move?
Yeah.
So then you decided to go, hey, it's time for me to go move back to Canada. And at that time, did you even think about like, hey, I'm going to open up a pole studio?
No.
What? Okay, how did this happen?
No, not at all. So when I was talking to my instructor back in England about, the move, and I was like, I don't know what I want to do. And I want to take pole, but like, I don't know any pole studios or anything like that.
Studios at the time.
Tantra was actually around at that time. Okay. Yeah. So I moved in like December 2009, like right before the Olympics. So the Olympics were like in the February, right? 2 months later. So I got here, and by February, it was kind of my goal. I was like, I will either be teaching some kind of class somewhere, or, I don't know, I'm going to try and make this a go, right?
Oh my gosh.
So by the February, I had found a local gym. It was like a small personal training gym, and they had extra space in the back.
Ooh, okay.
And so I was like, okay, I'm going to buy a couple of poles, and I'm going to put them up, and I'm going to see what happens. Like, that was it.
Oh my God.
and that's how I got started.
Wow.
And I remember at the time, actually, I had reached out to Tantra.
Yeah.
And they had said, we have room in our Langley studio. This is when they had Langley.
God, that was so long.
Yes.
ago.
And we need instructors there, but I didn't have a car.
So how are you going to get
I
there?
couldn't get there and I lived in Coquitlam.
Yeah.
And so I was like, this is not an option for me right now.
Yeah.
So, and that's really kind of why I decided to start teaching locally.
Yeah.
Because I couldn't
There's
get
no
anywhere.
options.
Yeah, there was no options.
Studios.
And they didn't need me downtown, and like, because I could have gotten on the train or something downtown, but they didn't have any openings. So that's kind of what happened.
Oh my God.
I was kind of just like almost like, I don't know what to do, so I'm just going to do it myself. And this is where we are today. So.
Oh my God.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you bought a couple poles and you're just like, I'm just going to wing it. Oh my God, that's so crazy. Wow. How was the response when you were initially getting started? Like, were people like, pole dancing? What the fuck is that? Like, stripping? Like, most people, that's what people think.
Stripper school. Yeah, absolutely.
School.
And I was like, well, I mean, it could be. Like, I take strippers. I can teach you that. That's my thing. That's my that's where I'm strong.
Yeah.
But we really tried to make it mainstream fitness. So, and because we were sharing space with the other people in the gym, we were like, okay, let's just try and make this as fitnessy and athletic as possible, was where, and again, I had come from England where it was that way, right? We were, nobody's wearing bikinis and G-strings in pole class at that time, right? Like we were all in shorts and tank tops, and we wore shoes in the exotic classes, and that was about it.
Okay.
Yeah, we did it, and I remember I put an ad out in the newspaper. It cost me like $400, but I was like, I'm gonna do this and see what happens, and it was for a free open house. I was like, I'm gonna put this out there, and really we had a great response to that, and it was just word of mouth after.
Oh wow.
And so I was in Port Moody teaching at the time, and then a year later I decided to branch out to Burnaby, and because Port Moody is really, the people are a little bit more like, they want to do personal training there. It was like the pole stuff wasn't really their thing, which is fine. Like that was at that time. Yeah. Now it's probably different. Probably. Yeah. So I was like, okay, well, there's not enough bodies in Port Moody. Yeah. So I'm going to go to Burnaby. So I found this dance studio, and they had an extra room, and they were like, yeah, we can rent this out to you. I was in Burnaby and Port Moody, so I did both, both locations, 2 classes in each location a week. So it was like 4 classes a week in total. Okay. And Burnaby is really what skyrocketed like me and the brand. And at the time we were actually called Polenastics.
Wow.
So we had a different name, and that name was borrowed from my sisters in England, because it was Polenastics in England. Gotcha. And they said, just take this because we're already known and stuff like that. So yeah, Burnaby got to a point where we had wait lists for like the next month, and I couldn't take any more people. Yeah. And the dance studio.
And it's just you?
It was just me.
Oh my gosh.
It was just me at the time, yeah. And I couldn't get any more time at the dance studio because they were busy with other classes. Yeah. And at that point, I think I had about 50 to 60 regular students. Wow. Out of both locations, right? Okay. So split between the 2. And so I ended up choosing New West because I could get still my Port Moody people and my Burnaby people. Yeah. And that's why we chose New West. Gotcha. And I was very apprehensive because at the time, New West was really run down.
Yeah, I remember, because I live up the street. Like, growing up, I lived in South Burnaby, like, right by the New West border. Yeah. I remember, like, SkyTraining down here, busing down here, like, ooh, like, this place is super dumpy. But now, look, it's, like, changed so much.
Yes, and all the buildings going up, and we're going to see a big increase in people in the next couple of years, just with the building that they're doing here. Yeah. But, yeah, and that's why we chose New West, just so we could make everybody happy. For sure. And that's kind of how pole started for me here in Canada.
It's an incredible journey. Oh my gosh. And now you've been around for, fast forward to 2019.
Yeah, so this is our 9th year in business.
That's incredible. I'm so proud of you.
Oh, thank you.
Such an inspiring story. Okay. With pole fitness now, pole dancing, how has it been, like, marketing that? Because pole fitness, pole dancing, exotic pole, like, separating the two, like, separating stripping out of that and people's conceptions, like, how do you deal with that as a business owner?
So it kind of has changed over the years, because when we first started, we were turned away from events. Like, none of the Pride was always the one that they were like, come and do this.
Yeah, they're always accepting. They're like, yes, please.
Yes, they were awesome. Pride has always supported us. But, other, like, little events, like, for, I can't even remember right now, but just other charity events where we wanted to go and showcase what it is that we did, they would be like, no, this is a family event, I know. And we've all heard this. Like, if you are in the pole fitness industry, you will have come across this a few times, I'm sure. But this, again, was back in, like, 2010, 2011, where it was still very taboo almost in Canada. Right. Yes, I feel like Canada has been a little behind the times.
Yeah, slow.
It's a little slow to catch up from the rest of the world, for sure. Yeah. Just the mentality of the people here, I find,
still,
is
like,
a little
conservative.
Very.
Yeah. Like, even though we are like labeled as liberal,
we are. Yeah.
Only for certain topics we're liberal.
Yes.
But with pole dancing and anything sexy, if you show a little bit of skin, it's like, no. Yeah. I don't want my kids to see that.
That's it. And that's the thing.
that.
And, and they were just like, this is a family event. And, it took me saying like, well, this is not a bunch of strippers coming out into your family event. We've got shorts on and running shoes and tank tops, and we're showcasing the athleticism and the art behind this.
Right.
And I always had to say, it's like Cirque du Soleil, but on a pole.
Yeah.
Or
like ballet, but on a vertical pole.
On a vertical bar. Yes,
bar.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes. So, we had a lot of pushback in the beginning days, but over the years, we've definitely seen it be more accepted at outside events. And we love doing those because that's where we get to showcase what we do for people.
Yeah, absolutely.
And now we show the sexy too, every event we do, I'm like, girls, bring your heels. We're going to do some dancing as well because it's okay to be sexy. And a lot of women who walk by, they're like, I want that in my life.
Yes.
So
we need more of that. We need more opportunities to be sexy and not be judged by other people, because I feel like we need an outlet to be like, hey, I want to feel feminine. Yes. I want to feel empowered. I want to feel like a woman. Yes. Right?
Absolutely.
And being sexy is part of it.
Right? It is. We all want to feel good.
We all want to feel
We do. We want to tap into that, sexual energy that we all have inside of. A lot of women don't know how to do it. Right? They have it and they're just like, I don't know what to do, or they're, they've had issues with, abusive partners or people that just, could bring them down constantly, and they just need to rediscover what is inside of them. And that's one of the things that I always hear about people that come here. They're just like, I knew I had this in me, but I didn't know how to tap into it, and now I can, and now I feel like a completely different person.
Totally.
Yeah.
Are you speaking personally as well?
No, personally for me, I've always had a sexual energy or drive inside of me since I can remember. Like, I've always been that way.
Okay.
Yeah.
So when you're younger, is that why you felt kind of so comfortable, like going to strip clubs when you're younger and all that?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yes.
So it wasn't like a foreign feeling?
No, it wasn't. When I was little, I danced as well. So, I was in like jazz, and my mom put me in ballet for a little bit, which I hated. And I wish I would have stayed in it because I would have been so much more, flexible and technique. Yes, exactly. Like, why didn't you just push me? As a kid, you're like, So I had a tiny bit of, dance background when I was little. And I think when I got older, I just wanted to rediscover that too. But the sexual side has always been there for me.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's really, really interesting. It's so cool. I think I'm the same way too, because I've just always been exhibitionist-y, which is probably why I love, being on stage and taking my clothes off. Yeah. It's fun.
It is.
Right?
It is
so
fun.
much fun.
Yeah.
But I want to go back to talk about your experiences when you first started stripping too, and then I guess sexual assault, like how that happened. So this is the sensitive part of the podcast, guys, but I do want to kind of tap into that because I feel like so many girls and so many women, including myself, have had some kind of sexual assault in their life. And honestly, a lot of people that are in the industry have had something happen to them. Yes. Which is really interesting. That's something I find in common a lot with girls I talk to. Yeah. So if you want to go ahead and open that book and speak on that, the floor is yours.
Okay. Maybe let's go start back from when I was a child. Let's start there. And then it kind of it'll work its way up into the whole dancing and all of that. So my experience is that I didn't really have one event where there was sexual assault. I had sexual abuse from my grandfather when I was, you know what? I can't even remember when it started. So it's all I can remember. It just happened. So I must have been 3 or 4. And it went on, and I was always ashamed to let people know how long this went on for, but it went on until I was about 12.
That's a long
It's a long time. It's a long time. And as adults, we always think, well, we would know by the age of 8, we would know that this is not okay. But as a girl, if you put yourself into an 8-year-old body, you don't know. And when you have somebody telling you, don't tell anybody, this is our secret, right? You think that's the way it is, right? And
it's normalized at that point.
It is. Right? At that point, you're just like, this is a normal thing. This is, I guess, what all girls go through. So it was a very long amount of time, and it was something that I never told anybody about until I was 17. Yeah, so it was something that and the first person I told was my mom.
Oh, wow.
Actually, no, you know what? The first person I told was the boyfriend that got me into stripping, and then I told my mom after.
Wow.
Yeah. So it was, like I said, it was such a long time for you to, go through these things.
That's nearly a decade.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a long time. And like that's during your formative developmental years going into like pre-puberty too. Like that's a very long time for that to be happening, for that abuse to occur. So
yes, and I remember thinking, when I was little, and of course, as a child, you don't really know anything, but I remember thinking, I don't want to get pregnant. And even though I hadn't received hadn't got my period yet, you don't know. You're just like, I don't want to get pregnant. If I can be graphic, or
of course,
there was never any penetration.
Okay.
But there was a lot of other things like that I was made to do and that my grandfather did to me, just touching, kissing, lots of, oral stuff like that. Yeah. So it was just, like I said, it was for me kind of normal. And then I don't know when I thought this is not okay. Like I can't pinpoint that moment. It was kind of almost like I grew out of it and I was just like, don't touch me anymore. Don't, I'm older now and stuff like that. Very shameful experience.
Yeah, absolutely. Like it must be even now like so difficult to talk about that.
I'm getting more comfortable the older I get with how much I share about that whole thing. And, I always think I want to write a book or something about this, because I want women to be able to speak up about this. And now I think with the whole Me Too movement, it's giving us a platform to actually not be shy anymore and just speak up and say, yeah, this happened to me as well. Whether you have years of sexual abuse or you have one sexual assault experience, like it's the same.
Yeah.
Right?
Totally. And that it's okay to talk about it. You're allowed to feel like this and it's a lot to be bottling up inside.
It is, yeah. And, let's go into the dancing, the stripping part. So many women and girls that I met in that industry have similar, if not the same story. Right. Whether it's an uncle that sexually abused them, whether they were raped. There's so many stories. And the more women I met that had this type of thing happen to them, the more we were all like, it's funny that we ended up in this stripping scene together.
It's so fucked up.
It is weird,
it's
right?
It's so weird, yeah.
And it's like we all have these what they call daddy issues, and I'm using quotation marks.
I hate that.
I know, me too. It's like, oh, she has daddy issues, and it's just like, there's obviously something that happens to us when these things happen when we're young or in, before we hit our late teens. Yeah. If these type of things happen to you, you go toward more of it. It's so strange.
I wonder if there's like any studies on this too. It's just a weird, I don't want to say correlation, but it is kind of like correlated in some way.
It is. And, I've had therapy for this because, I got to a point where I was like, I really need to talk to somebody that's like outside of my family. Yeah. That, can have, there's no like,
bias
there's no
like
bias
that.
And they can be subjective.
Right.
And so I was speaking to a therapist about it, and she said it's based on patterns. So when we're young, we are molded into these patterns that are like surrounding us. So for me, it was my grandfather somebody that I trusted.
Right.
And that I thought loved me. Right. And I let him do these things. And then I go, okay, well, let's go to my first boyfriend that got me into stripping.
Right.
I trusted him.
Yeah.
I thought he loved me. I let him do whatever he wanted to me, basically. Right. So there's that same pattern 10 plus years later.
Yeah.
And then you go to the strip club, and in the strip club, I feel like we take the power over.
Yes.
Right? So I feel like it has to be linked somehow because we've got these patterns in our relationships, and then we go to this place where we can go, it's my turn.
Yeah.
And I think
to reclaim that power.
Yes. And I think that's what it is.
I think so too.
Yeah.
You might have a really good theory out there. I'm going to Google this later.
Yeah.
Well, it makes complete sense though too.
Yeah.
So I want to ask, like, how did your mom receive that? How did your ex-boyfriend receive that news when you shared that information with them?
So my ex-boyfriend, for all of his faults, he was really supportive with that, because it was the first time that I shared it as well, which was a really hard thing for me to do because of that shame that you carry with you.
Yeah.
He really was just like, I want to kill your grandfather. I want to kill him.
Yeah.
And he's no longer with us, my grandfather. But, he lived with us. And so my boyfriend had to see him.
Oh, my God.
Yes, and not say anything. So he was very supportive. My mom, she was kind of mortified, when I told her.
Was it her father or?
Yes.
Oh, my God.
And that's the thing,
I
know. And so the thing is, my mom, it being her father is it must have been so hard for her because, she trusted him, and it's just like, you've completely violated my daughter and my home, and I don't even really know what she thinks about it because she doesn't really talk about it.
Yeah.
But she was very upset, and, she basically said, I'm sorry that I couldn't protect you. And after that, we kind of put it to bed, and we didn't really bring it up again until much, much later. And I'm not the only one in my family that he's done this to. Which God. I didn't know until I told my mom. And then she told me, well, he did this to your cousin. And we think he did it to my aunt, one of my mom's sisters that is only a product of my grandfather, but my grandmother. So he had a child outside of the marriage.
Oh my God.
Yes. So,
that's awful.
And so I connected with my aunt on it, and we talked about it. I connected with my cousin on it, and we talked about it. Yeah. So it was just like, okay, I'm not the only one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Somewhat comforting, but not really. Like, that's terrible.
Yeah. It is. It is. And, my mom has said, well, I was told that this had happened to your cousin, and, we just thought, oh, she was like 5 years old, and, Grandpa's touching me and whatever. And they moved out of the house and they moved in with us, like the grandparents.
Okay.
So,
gosh.
Yeah. So
wow.
there's a lot going on in the family.
I'm sorry to hear
that. Oh, thank you. But the family they kind of brush it under the rug. It's just like one of those things. And I feel like all families have stuff like that.
Yeah,
right?
Of course.
So that's what it is.
It's really heavy. Oh
yeah,
my
I'm
God.
sorry.
No, don't apologize, please. I invited you on the show so you could talk about this and you could share your experience with others, because I'm sure there are other people that this has happened to as well. Like, not just in the stripper and sex worker community, but people in general. Because I've had a lot of friends that there has been a lot of child abuse that has happened, and it's awful to hear about it. But whoever's listening out there, like, hopefully this can kind of help you guys as well, because I want to know, like, how do you overcome this? Because it's heavy stuff, and it affects your day-to-day life, right?
Yeah, it is. And, for a long time, it kind of, I couldn't overcome it. I was like, this is my story, and, I'm a victim of it. But over the years, I've kind of had to retrain my thought process and think, you know what, I'm not a victim of this. I'm actually a survivor of this, and I'm not going to let it dictate my life. It is part of me. It is something that happened. It's really shitty that it happened, but I don't have to let it kind of, drag me down or anything like that. And I can just channel all my energy into, things that I love to do with my life. And business is one of those things.
Right.
So yeah, it is something where, like, I'm in a good place now with it. I don't need therapy anymore.
Yay! That's amazing.
Yeah, and it's something, like, this is probably the first time I'm talking so openly and candidly about it.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I'm
so
thank you. Proud of you.
Thank you.
Thank you for sharing your story on this. It's so incredibly powerful because, when we are victimized like that, sometimes people allow that to define them, right? And it's just so hard to crawl out of that hole.
Yeah.
right? I was sexually assaulted when I was 18 from someone in the stripper community. And that was not a nice time. Like, I just got out of a relationship. I started getting involved with this stripper person, and then him and his friend sexually assaulted me. And it was just not a nice experience. And I just remember being totally violated and crushed, and then I just kind of buried it for a very, very long time because I was like, I don't know what happened to me. Like, did I consent to that? I think I did. Like I said, I wanted to do this. Yeah. It sounded fun, and then when you get there, you just freeze.
Yeah.
You just freeze. Like, I don't even know what happened. I was like, oh my gosh. I just remember calling my girlfriend at the time, just crying, and I couldn't even formulate words.
Right.
To be like, I didn't want to say what happened either, because I was like, hey, like, I was sleeping with this guy, and then this happened, and it was just really not a nice time. And then I only started talking about that recently as well, just because I think it really helped me too. So, but it's hard because, you know, again, like, you don't want that one moment or these experiences to define you for the rest of your life.
You don't, but when they do happen, it is very traumatizing, you know, and you can't help how you react to it.
Oh, yeah.
And you just have to take as much time as you can until, you know, one day you'll go, okay, I'm going to talk about this now, right? Like, it just is one of those
things. Take it at your own pace, right?
Yeah, you do. And like you, I buried it, but, you know, there's a lot of shame that comes with it. And that's the thing that we're afraid of. You know, we're fearful that people are going to judge, you know, because I actually did have one experience where I told another guy that I was dating. Well, he was like on and off for a couple of years, but he ended up being a good friend. Okay. But I told him about it, and he judged me. He was like, how could you let that happen so long?
My God.
And I was like,
was it that question? Like, how could you let that happen?
Yes. And I was like, you know what? You're not who I thought you were. Yeah. I'm telling you this because I felt comfortable with you, and because we have been intimate, like him and I had been intimate a couple of times. Right. And we had been, I don't even know how the conversation came up, but it did. And yeah, he was just like, oh, you know, how could you let that happen? I'm like, you don't understand at all.
No.
I'm like, I'm
conversation's
so
done.
Done. We're done.
Yeah.
We're done totally. I'm not friends with him anymore.
Oh my gosh.
It's like, cut you out of my life.
No ability to empathize at all. Like, come on, you're a child. Like, you don't have to explain it. No. That's a no-brainer, right? So, God. That's just, oh gosh. Just everything. This whole episode is so incredibly painful, but also very inspiring too, because obviously look at you now, like, you're this amazing entrepreneur, this beautiful studio, inspiring women and men from everywhere, and sharing your love for pole dancing. I think that's something to be very, very, very proud about.
Thank you.
I
feel lucky. I feel so blessed that I found this sport and this industry, and that I could take all of my experience, like, you know, dancing in the clubs, because that was invaluable. Like, you know, a lot of people ask me, how do you put together routines? I'm like, I don't know, I just freestyle. But that's the life of a stripper.
Yeah.
You know, you're just like,
there's no routines.
No, there's no routines. The DJ puts on your music, and you just have to go and do a show and do whatever comes to mind. So I love that I have that behind me, because it helps me so much in this.
Yeah, being a teacher as well.
A coach, a teacher, and
That's crazy. Okay, well, we have a lot of Q&A, like a lot of questions, the most questions I've ever received. So I guess we'll kind of just hammer it out, unless there's anything you want to add to that. Or
no, I think I'm done.
Well, a lot of major questions here. So first question, how can you ensure your own safety in a private dance room?
That's a great question. So I'm a little bit naive to the VIP rooms here. Do they have cameras?
Yes.
Okay,
yes, they have cameras
here.
Good.
That's good. So really, you just, one, always get your money up front.
Absolutely.
I know so many girls that don't. I'm like, girl, you gotta get your money first.
Yes.
You have to really be authoritative almost with these guys. Yeah. You know, I mean, it's hard we always, like, in my clubs, we always had the bouncers were right outside in case we needed anything. I cannot tell you the amount of times, like, where I'd had my back to the guy because I was, like, I don't know, bent over or something. Like, you know, showing everything.
Yeah.
And I turn around and he has his dick out in his hand. And I'd be like, Johnny, come and get this guy. Like, you know, whatever. So, yeah, you just, I mean, have your wits about you. Part of, you know, dancing is you're there to do a job, but you have to be smart about it too.
Right.
2 drink minimum was for me. I always had that rule for myself because
good one.
I found if I drank more, I would obviously be a little bit more loosey-goosey and I would chat a lot, not make any money. That's like a whole other part of it. But yeah, just have your wits about you and like just stand your ground. That's how I always approached it.
I know we were chatting before we started recording, but you mentioned like some guys will try to like take advantage of the situation and like, you know, try to bite your nipples or try to like touch too much or touch certain areas. How do you protect yourself that way?
Yeah, well, I have had that. So I've had guys bite my nipples. I've had guys grab my vagina and like try to put their fingers inside, you know, like gross shit.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, you have to have thick skin and you just have to be like, dude, come on.
Yeah.
And there were so many times where I would take the guy's hands and just put them down. I'm like, no touching.
Yeah.
You know, and the clubs that I worked in, there was definitely no touching.
Okay.
Allowed.
In the UK?
In England, yeah. And the ones in Toronto, they were a little bit more, you know,
liberal.
Yeah. Liberal, lenient. They didn't really watch the guys too much. They were just like, do whatever, just, you know, be safe.
Oh my God.
We're here for you in case you need anything. And
oh my gosh.
Yeah, in England, they're very strict. The laws are different there.
Oh, okay.
The laws are very different. You're not the only place you're allowed to go nude is in the VIP. You're not allowed to go nude on the floor, not on stage. You can't even go topless. I remember, here's the story. The first club that I started dancing in England, I was on stage, I was doing my show, and I whipped my top off, and the bouncer came running over. He's like, babe, you gotta put your top back on. We're not allowed to do that here. I'm like,
oh my
what?
God.
I'm like about to get full on nude here. And they were like, no, you're not allowed. And
this isn't a thing here.
It's just the laws. Yeah,
so
it's like in the States they can't go bottomless. Yeah.
Weird.
Yeah.
That's so weird.
I know. But it actually is really nice because you get a lot more dances because the guys want to see what's under.
Yeah, because it's more of a tease when you're there, like, hey, now come to the VIP room and now let's get naked and you pay me.
Yeah.
Which makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So.
Damn. Dances are so hard to sell here. They're so expensive too.
It's because the girls show everything on stage.
Yeah.
There's really nothing left to the imagination. And the guys, they're like, oh, we've already seen it all.
Yeah.
Like, why would we want to pay for it when we get it for free or for a few dollars?
For free for some.
Which is sad.
Yeah.
Which is, like, not cool. Yeah.
That's one thing I hate about stage. Like, I love stage. I love being on stage. I love performing. But then, honestly, the money's not there.
No.
The money's in VIP, which I hate.
Yeah.
I know. That's another topic.
Do you get paid per show?
Yeah.
Okay.
So at least we have that to supplement the tips and whatnot.
Yeah.
So.
We in England they don't pay per show, so the club does not pay you at all.
Oh.
You pay the house fee, and then you make all your tips on stage and whatever you make in VIP, and then you give a small percentage at the end of the night based on what you make.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, so the structure is a little bit different.
Yeah.
Okay. Still cool though.
Yeah.
What was your dancer name and what show did you like to perform?
My dancer name was Taylor.
I can kind of picture that.
Yeah, I love that name. I actually, when I was younger, I used to watch Bold and the Beautiful.
Okay.
And one of the characters' name was Taylor, and she was so pretty, and I always wanted to like be like her. And so when I went into that scene, I was like, my name's gonna be Taylor. That's me.
Taylor.
Yes.
I love that. It's amazing.
Yeah.
Do you have any favorite shows you want to perform? I guess like your signature tricks or whatever. Or?
My favorite show shows. Are you talking like
I don't know,
costume or
maybe I'm not sure what
character?
she exactly asked here, but whatever you decide.
Okay.
Very subjective.
I love doing water shows.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, I love that.
Wet and Wild.
Wet and Wild. And if there was no, like if we couldn't, like if I was at a club where they're like, no, we're not allowed to do like water. So what I would do is we'd have like, a bucket and sponge type of thing, and it would be like the soapy water. And then the stage would be wet, so I could slip and slide all over the place.
Right.
If the club did not allow that because of cleanup time, I like to do ice shows. So where I take ice and just put it all over me.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
And of course that gets your nipples really hard, which guys love.
Guys love that shit.
Yeah.
Pro tip, guys. Pro tip.
Yeah. So that, and then, just the norm, really cool costume, whatever. Yeah. Yeah. But definitely my favorite shows were water shows.
Fun.
Yeah.
And it's also very popular as well. So.
Yes.
How can one cleanse their mind after an assault?
Well, I think that, we've already kind of talked a little bit about, the therapy, and then just really taking your time and being able to talk about it on your own terms. I think, if I had been older and it happened, maybe I would have approached it differently. Maybe I would have been like, I'm going to the police right now,
Yeah.
And that's the thing. The times are different, right?
Yeah, it's very different now.
When this was happening to me, there was no real such thing as child abuse.
Mm-mm.
It was like nobody talked about it. There was no punishment, like legal punishment really for it. So I think just, take time to love yourself and nurture yourself and mother yourself.
Right.
And just whenever you're ready to talk about it, then talk about that. Yeah.
Great advice. How long ago now did you stop stripping? So I guess how many years now?
So I stopped in 2009.
Okay. So a decade.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Time flies, guys. Holy shit.
It feels like not that long ago, but I do miss it sometimes, and I sometimes think, man, maybe I should just go like work for the weekend. That would be great. But then I'm like, you know what? I'm so much older now. I'm in my I'm 36. So, yeah, so I'm like, I don't know if, how well I would do now if there's 18 to 20.
Oh, yeah, everyone's young.
Yeah.
Younger and younger. Even I feel old, and I'm 29.
Yeah, so I'm like, I don't know if I would do well anymore. So the way that I get it out of my system is I perform in class or I perform at the shows, wherever we're doing it. Yeah, so.
Fair enough.
Yes.
How was the transition from stripper to business owner, and which is more challenging?
Business.
Hands down.
No hesitation
there.
No. Stripping for me was not hard. It felt so natural for me. Talking to, we all get into that, I have to have the same conversations with this, same type of men every night. It gets so boring. But really, it's not
easy
hard.
In that way.
Yeah, it's easy. It's just you get bored.
Yeah.
Right? But yeah, I found that so much easier. And in business, there's just so many areas that you come up against challenges. And I'm not going to bore you guys with that, but definitely business is harder.
Okay. What emotional and mental tool did you use to move forward and stay strong after the assault?
I think therapy really helped. Yeah, it wasn't until I started talking about it that I could move on. As long as it was inside me and it was just my problem, that's what was tearing me down and was kind of affecting my life, and it wasn't until I talked about it. So talk.
Yeah,
just talk, even if it's talking to your girlfriends, talk to people that will not judge you and that they won't judge you.
Right.
And that will help.
Just get it out of your system.
Yes.
Right? Okay.
Yeah.
What is the biggest change you've seen since you started as an exotic dancer then and now? There's lots of changes, countrywide and everything.
Yeah, there is so many changes. So yeah, different countries, the different rules and laws in the clubs. But I know from now, because I teach a lot of strippers, the money is not there anymore.
Yes.
I know that I talk to girls on almost a weekly basis. I'm like, what's going on in the clubs this week? Are you making good money? Is it worth it for you? And they're like, oh yeah, I was lucky if I made like $150 or $200 last night. I'm like, what? I'm like, girlfriend, what?
Yeah.
I'm like,
I
was walking out of the club with like 1,000 pounds. That's like nearly $2,000.
1,000 pounds.
Yes.
Oh my God.
For me, I was like, it was so different, you know, in that time. This is also before the recession hit in what, like 2009 or 8?
Or, yeah, 8 or something.
So I was kind of like stopped around that time.
Oh,
right?
Just in time.
Yeah, just in time. So, you know, for me at the time, I was like, I'm not happy until I make at least 800 pounds tonight.
God.
Yes.
That's so nice.
I know. And you know, it's so different now when the girls tell me, I'm like, God. And then that's why they all travel.
Yeah.
That's why they do all, you know, they go to the different provinces.
So crazy.
And I understand. I'm like, go, like, do it. Go where the money is.
Totally.
Because if you're going to do this to yourself,
yeah.
you know, and be, you know, put your body through this every night, like, go and at least make something for it.
It's really sad, actually, but that's another topic.
Yes.
Completely.
Yeah.
What was the industry like in Europe when you started? I guess we've already kind of talked about that, unless there's more you wanted to add to that.
Yeah, no, it was really, I can talk a little bit about the industry. Like, I just talk about my personal experiences, but the industry is fantastic there, in England especially. There's, like I said, there's a lot of strip clubs, so you have a lot of choices, so you can go anywhere. You can go up to Scotland if you want, and like, there's no agencies like here. You just go right to the club and do an audition.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah, so it's just like you are in charge of your own schedule.
Cool.
You tell them when you are available, and then they call you in, or you're already scheduled like a week before or whatever. Then they keep, you know, they'll keep the top girl. I was the top dancer because
I can definitely see that.
Oh, thank you. I had the rules though. I was like 2-drink minimum. I'm not going to walk out of here unless I have 800. And if I'm making money, they're making money because they get a percentage of mine, right?
Yes.
So they want to keep the girls that are hustling.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the girls were awesome. Like, I don't know how it is now. I don't know what that like sisterhood is like anymore. Yeah, I mean, obviously I had my fair share of like frenemies in the club, but that's just jealousy.
Yeah.
Right? It's just based on jealousy.
For sure.
I tried my best to get, you know, be friendly to everybody and, you know, double up with girls so we could work together in the VIP. Yeah, we do. Yeah, we would. We'd be like, okay, let's go 3 of us tonight, and we're gonna get all these guys to do VIP, which is, it's different there because you have private dances and then VIP. VIP is 15 minutes.
Oh.
So you get 3 songs.
Okay.
And they pay a minimum of like 100 pounds or something.
Oh.
So to each girl.
Oh.
Yeah, so it's good. So that was the way we would go.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was so fun. And we used to have events in the clubs. I remember like in the summertime we would have like a summer solstice party where we'd bring out floaties and we'd fill like a big pool with like foam. We'd foam parties.
Oh, fun.
Yeah, so it was fun. Like it was really good back then. And like I can't speak to it now because I'm not in it, but from what I hear, they still do that kind of sometimes, like different events.
Yeah, they definitely had that more at like the Fox in Victoria, but now that's
shut down. Yeah, I heard.
But not so much here in Vancouver. Like the most eventy kind of things would be like amateur night or like move something at number 5. Those aren't really events to me.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, that doesn't count.
No,
like, we don't really do that.
Yeah, so the events, they would like bring in lots of customers. Yeah, they'd have like,
guys, club owners, take a tip. Come on, do some events. Come on.
Just look on, like, if there are any club owners listening to this, if they just look on any of the websites from, you know, any of the big clubs like Spearmint Rhino or any of those big ones in London, they'll be able to see.
Get some inspo.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I guess what made you decide to start dancing?
So again, that was just being exposed to the strip clubs and just seeing the girls and
maybe I can do that too.
Yeah. And I was like young, right? 18.
Yeah.
So as soon as I turned 18, that was like one of the first things I did. I went to the strip club and I was like, I would like to work. And back then they were like, you were allowed to work at 18, but not allowed to drink.
Right.
Right? So I don't know what the rules are now. You might have to be 19.
I think you have to be 19, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Oh my God, crazy. And that's all for questions. That was a lot of questions.
Wow.
So, holy crap, well, we are done here. But before we go, where can we find you? tell us about the studio.
Oh, okay.
Use this to market.
Well, you can find me in studio like almost every day of the week.
Literally find her here.
Yes. The business is AVA Fitness Studios on Instagram and Facebook. And my personal Instagram is Miss Jessica Lyn. And I think that's the only places. AVAfitness.ca. Yes. Come check us out.
Yes. And, take a class or 5 or everything.
Yeah. And feel free to message me on any social media platform if you have other questions or if you want to talk personally and just one-on-one. I am here. I'm open and ready to help anybody who needs to, share their story as well and just somebody to talk to.
Oh my gosh, this is such an amazing episode. You're such an incredible human being.
Oh, thank you.
So happy you could be on the show today. And guys, that's it for today. So again, don't forget to subscribe, rate, like, Strip by Sia. And we'll catch you guys again in another week. And thank you again, Miss Jessica.
Thank you so much.
Show. Anyways, we're going to wrap up here, guys. So have a great night, weekend, or whatever you guys are doing. Peace.